What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Water Cooler Talk. My name is Caleb Turner, and I'm a sports writer at KSL.com. We're back with on this Sunday evening, getting you ready for your Monday morning to talk about the latest sports happenings around the state of Utah, getting you ready for those conversations around the water cooler, around the office with those friends, coworkers, family, so you can be in the know. Starting with some recaps of what went down this weekend in the sports world. Little college football, obviously, as we are in the full swing of fall. Technically, though temperatures might say otherwise here in Utah as we stick around 80 degrees. We had, once again, the three major FBS college football teams playing this weekend after a couple bye weeks. Utah State, maybe unfortunately for their fans, playing once again. They lost their fifth in a row, 50 to 34 to UNLV. Utah, the Utes, went on the road, headed down to Arizona to take on the Arizona State Sun Devils in what was a hotly contested and much discussed game due to the return of Cam Rising at quarterback. He threw a couple interceptions, I believe three in the end, and Utah lost that game 27 to 19 to the Sun Devils on the road. And more on this later, but did end up dropping out of the top 25 for the first time this season. Lastly, in the world of college football here in the state of Utah, the BYU Cougars. They kept things going with another win, starting out 6-0. They beat Arizona, the other Arizona team, the Wildcats from Tucson. It was in Provo. They beat them 41 to 19. The big noon kickoff team from Fox was there. They did a big party, kids camping out, getting ready for that game, and they showed out well. Cosmo, the cougar, the mascot, skydove out of a an airplane, parachuted down and landed into the crowd at that Fox presentation, and BYU embraced it. Ended up scoring 41 points in that game, holding Arizona to 19. Noah Fafita, the quarterback for Arizona, three picks as well. So bit of a tough weekend for these college football quarterbacks throwing interceptions. But man, BYU, we'll talk a little bit more about them as well later. But they get another win. And then moving on to soccer a little bit, Real Salt Lake was off this week, but the Utah Royals were at America First Field in Sandy playing Seattle Reign FC today on Sunday, actually, in a little Sunday matinee, and they won 3-0. Utah Royals winners of three in a row, staving off playoff elimination once again. Started from the bottom, literally. Utah Royals were at the bottom of the standings most of the season, and have now climbed into 10th place, just two spots out of that final playoff spot in 8th place. Three wins in a row. Chloe Lacasse, a recent addition, she joined the team in August. Canadian national team member forward, she got a hat trick, three goals for the Royals at America First Field, and you'll never believe this, first hat trick in Utah Royals history. Albeit not a very long history, longer than just this year though, dating back to when they first originated in 2018. No hat tricks, no three-goal performances. Chloe Lacasse the first, and she powered the Royals to that 3-0 victory, had all the goals. And so another exciting one for them. More on that storyline of the Royals coming up in a later segment. But moving on to a little bit of basketball. Utah Jazz still in preseason. They had won three in a row, but then they lost to the San Antonio Spurs yesterday without Wemby, I might add. San Antonio native myself, big fan of Wemby. He was not playing, but the Jazz turned the ball over 22 times. When you do that, it's a little tough to win. So they dropped their first game, go to 3-1 on the preseason, but they've got two more this week to finish out those preparatory games. Lastly, in our recap, this is possibly the biggest story of them all. The Utah Hockey Club. They had their opener Tuesday of this week earlier, the Delta Center. Big concert. Shabuzi, the country artist, number one song in the country, was out there. Um, Rally towels, sold out arena, t-shirts for everybody. Great pregame show, and everyone went crazy. And Utah Hockey Club won that game and haven't lost since. They start the season 3-0 as they begin NHL play as a new team, new club. Still no mascot, although the Jazz Bear did make an appearance as the Hockey Bear. And so yeah, they hockey club starts 3-0. They had that first home game and then went on the road for a couple games, beat the Islanders and the Rangers out there in New York, and stay out there for one more as well in New Jersey as we get into our look ahead. Tomorrow, Monday, Utah Hockey Club stays on the road, like I mentioned, facing the New Jersey Devils as they look to move to 4-0 on the season. Perfect start for the Utah Hockey Club. Utah Jazz keep going in their preseason, playing the Kings, Sacramento Kings at home at the Delta Center on Tuesday. And then skipping ahead a bit, we've got a rare Friday game for the BYU Cougars down there in Provo, taking on Oklahoma State as Big 12 play continues. Cougars will look to move to 7-0 this coming Friday. So big one to watch there, see if the Cougars can keep it going. Then on Saturday, some more college football going on. Utah State versus New Mexico in Logan, and then the Utah Utes versus TCU at home at Rice-Eccles Stadium here in Salt Lake City. So a lot to look forward to. We are fully in the swing of things with college football and other sports because we're not done yet. Soccer also still in play, like I mentioned. Real Salt Lake has their regular season finale on Saturday at America First Field against Vancouver. Real Salt Lake has already got clinched their playoff spot. They're going to get a top four spot, but they're looking to secure a spot in the Champions League, CONCACAF Champions Cup, which is all the teams from North America competing against each other. So if they win against Vancouver, they should have a good chance of getting a spot into that tournament and hopefully go into the playoffs with some momentum, as there have been some somewhat uneven or lackluster results, you might say, for Real Salt Lake the last few weeks. And lastly, Utah Royals heading out on the road for their penultimate game of the season against Angel City on Sunday. And they'll look to once again delay elimination from playoff contention with a win there, hopefully. If they lose, bad luck, probably not going to be in the playoffs, which, if you had told Royals fans a few weeks ago that they could be in the playoffs, that was even a possibility, you'd be laughed out of the room. So, last place, like I mentioned, they've really been able to turn things around, and we'll see if they can keep it going. Now, moving on to some winners and losers of the weekend, real quick. Winners, this might be a little obvious. As I mentioned, Utah Hockey Club getting off to a dream start, 3-0. So, the sport of hockey in general in the state of Utah, definitely a winner this week with how big that home opener was, all the fans that came out, sold out arena, and even more fans, spilling out onto the street. They closed down 300 there and had that concert and had big screens to watch the game on. So big week for the ice here in the state of Utah for those who like hockey. And in particular, I want to spotlight a player on the Utah Hockey Club that I want to say is a winner for this week. Dylan Gunther, young man, 22 years old, might even be 21 actually. I need to double check that, but very, very young man, on the come up. This young rising star for the Utah Hockey Club leads NHL with 5 goals in 3 games. He's just been incredible. Had a couple game winners. I was able to see it in person. I went to the home opener on Tuesday, able to see Gunther in action. Confident kid, playing alongside Clayton Keller, the captain up there. Keller got the game winner in their last game against the Rangers. So shout out to Clayton Keller. Great goal. Check out that highlight if you get a chance. Just a filthy around the goal, flips it up past the goalie. Great move. Look at me talking about hockey. I don't even consider myself a hockey fan, but here we are. Hockey's really taken over Salt Lake City, the state of Utah, with what they've been able to do. So shout out them, shout out Dylan Gunther, shout out Clayton Keller. Some big winners this week as they already have tons of fans and try to convert even more into hockey fans here in the state. And our sole loser of the week, sorry, but it's got to go to the Utah Utes, the football team. Losing another game, dropping out of the AP Top 25 after what was seen preseason as, college football playoff contender, picked to win the Big 12. Now, things are looking not so great. Cam Rising did play, did not look great. For more on that, please read some of Josh Furlong's stories on what's been going on up there on the hill with the Utes. And as well on the other side of things with BYU, make sure you're checking out Sean Walker, and with the Hockey Club and the Jazz, Brian Miller. We've got everything you need. If you just check out KSL.com, We've even got these new key takeaways that make the stories really, really easy to read. So make sure you're checking out all that coverage for more in depth on all these teams. So that's it for winners and losers. Winners, Hockey Club. Losers, the Utah Utes. You know, this was the week where they really fell off out of the national spotlight, out of the top 25. So got to give it to them there, unfortunately. And moving on to our last segment today. I put a poll up on my Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. Make sure you're following me there at Caleb Turner 23. I do post about this show. I do post about a variety of sports. My main job is covering soccer, so there is a lot of soccer. Beware of that. And I posted a poll, just asking people what's the biggest story in Utah sports right now in the state. What are people talking about? What are people excited about? I gave three options and an option for a fourth as well if somebody wanted to comment what they saw as the biggest story. But the three that I gave out were the Utah Hockey Club starting 3-0, undefeated. The Utah Royals pushing for a playoff spot after wallowing in last place in the NWSL for months on end. And then BYU starting 6-0 on the season. And the results so far, obviously, the ongoing poll, I put it for 24 hours, so we'll see what happens. But it's basically an even split between the three. Utah Hockey Club, 36%, Utah Royals, 34%, and BYU, 28%. So all hovering right around that 30% mark. If you have some thoughts on that, make sure to go check out that poll. Give me a follow, give me a comment on what your thoughts are on that. But certainly tied in with what we've talked about so far with these major storylines. So I'm curious what you guys are most excited about, what you want to hear more about. So that's just a small sample size, I think 40 votes total. But it's just to give you an idea, some exciting things happening in the world of sports here in the state of Utah. And I did want to give one extra little tidbit, little tag here at the end for any of you who were following or watching the BYU football game yesterday. You might have noticed some tweets or some posts about a basketball player, AJ DeBonsa. He's enrolled high school senior at Utah Prep down in southern Utah. He's projected to possibly be the number one pick, not in the 2025 draft, but in 2026, since he is still in high school. He did an official visit to BYU with head coach Kevin Young, who's the new head coach of the men's basketball team at BYU. And so, yeah, official visit. He's said that BYU is among his top choices to go to college. Obviously, for a guy of his caliber, number one in the nation, a lot of competition. But Kevin Young was out there, and BYU got a couple of recent stars, Puka Nakua, who I've mentioned on this show before, and Fred Warner, actually, who I've also mentioned on this show before. Both BYU football alums. They were on the sidelines at the football game, and AJ DeBonsa met them, was able to talk with them. These guys who are, high profile professional athletes that came out of Provo. So a big moment there. So my last minute little kind of tag here is keep an eye on that. Keep an eye on AJ DeBonsa when he puts out, who his I believe BYU is in his final four or final six schools that he's considering. High school senior, like I mentioned. So he will be committing to a college within the next few months. So keep an eye on that. It would be wild. BYU basketball has already gotten a few high-profile recruits under Kevin Young just these last few months. Igor Demin, who I'm sure I will mention many more times on this show, Russian 6'9" point guard, projected to go top 10 in the 2025 draft. So with DeBonsa, they could have, back-to-back top 10 draft picks coming out of BYU, which would be unheard of, especially in recent years. Haven't seen that since Jimmer with the basketball team. So it would be huge. Keep an eye on Kevin Young, KYU, Kevin Young University, as our friend Sean Walker says. But a lot of exciting things, not only with football, but possibly also with basketball happening in Provo. Much more to look forward to there. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Be sure to hit me up with any questions. You can add me on Twitter, DM me on Twitter if you'd like, or if you prefer email, like I've said before, kslwatercoolertalk@gmail.com. Send questions, comments, suggestions, whatever it might be for this show, things you'd like to hear about or things that you're just curious about that you would like to know more about for your discussions with friends, coworkers, whoever it might be that you need to keep up with sports on. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you guys next time.